Hey guys, it's AJ. Welcome to my new channel, AJ Rambles, where I plan to talk about different fandom related topics and analyze different characters and media. Today I wanted to talk about a show I'm still relatively new to at this point, and that's Good Omens. I got into it around September, and since then I've watched it more times than I probably care to admit. One thing I know a lot of people like to talk about is Aziraphale's decision to leave back to heaven at the end of season 2. Probably the biggest theory that's been circulating around online, like in Tumblr and TikTok, is the coffee theory.
I've made my position quite clear.
Yeah, well, I brought you a coffee from the shop.
The coffee theory, in the simplest terms, is basically the idea that the Metatron spiked Aziraphale's coffee with a miracle in order to make him want to leave. And I really liked this theory for a while, until I started to think more about Aziraphale as a character. As much as we'd all like for the coffee theory to be true, mostly for our own sanity, the truth of the matter is, Aziraphale's decision to leave aligns a lot with his character, especially with the things he believes, the way he acts, and the responsibilities he puts upon himself. There's also a lot of people that believe that the Metatron had threatened Aziraphale in some way, particularly because when he's at the coffee shop, he asks Nina whether anyone ever chooses death over coffee when they're ordering. But I don't think that's what happened. I don't think he threatened Aziraphale. The Metatron seems to prefer manipulation and suggestion whenever he wants something. He only really resorts to threats when he knows there's no way to convince the person. For example, Gabriel, when he's made up his mind that he doesn't want Armageddon to happen, that threat he gives is in the form of a punishment. It's already too late to change Gabriel's mind, and so he suggests erasing his memory. I think he definitely manipulates Aziraphale to push him to make the choice he wants, but suggesting that as the sole reason removes the nuances of Aziraphale's character. The first thing that influences Aziraphale's decision to leave is his relationship with defiance and lying, as well as the guilt he usually feels after the fact. For the majority of human history, Aziraphale displays a strong resistance to defying and questioning the Almighty. The earliest example of this is in the very first scene in the Garden of Eden, when Crowley begins asking questions. Why was it wrong for the humans to know the difference between good and evil? Why would the Almighty put the tree right in the center of the garden if she didn't want them to touch it? And why was she punishing them on a first offense? Aziraphale then stops him, telling him it's best not to speculate because they are not meant to know God's plans. Or in Aziraphale's words,
It's ineffable.
right after this exchange from them, we get a glimpse into Aziraphale's more defiant side. As far as we know, Aziraphale's first time defying God in any way, shape, or form was when he gives the flaming sword to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden.
Gave it away.
You what?
I gave it away.
He views this act more as a way of helping Adam and a pregnant Eve keep safe and warm when they leave the garden, rather as an act of defiance of God. However, he still becomes anxious over the possibility of him being in the wrong. Crowley reassures him that Aziraphale, being an angel, probably can't do the wrong thing. Something we know isn't true by God's standards, given the existence of the demons. But regardless of whether it's true or not, this seems to comfort him until Crowley jokes about them both getting it wrong, with himself being good by tempting Eve with the apple and Aziraphale being bad by giving up the sword, which Aziraphale chuckles at before immediately getting serious and being upset by the suggestion, given it would mean he had interfered with the divine plan in a negative way. This idea of the ineffable plan is reinforced again during the flood, when God planned to drown the locals after becoming upset with them. Crowley questions him specifically over the fact that kids will drown as well, something that Aziraphale seems equally uncomfortable with, even if he doesn't say it. However, when Crowley compares the act to something hell would do and makes a sarcastic remark, Aziraphale chastises him for judging God, and then brings back the idea of the ineffable plan.
You can't judge the Almighty, Crowley. God's plans are...
Are you going to say ineffable?
Possibly.
In season 2, we get another glimpse into Aziraphale's defiance, this time in the form of lying. In the episode 2 minisode, A Companion to Owls, God sets out to take everything away from Job, the human he has treated the best and favors to all the others, as a way to test his faith in order to win a bet against Satan. Part of this means killing Job's children, something Aziraphale struggles with allowing to happen when he finds out Crowley has permission to essentially destroy Job's life.
Seems legit to me.
This minisode explores the start of Aziraphale's trust in Crowley, with him becoming certain he won't kill Job's children, especially once he finds out he turned Job's goats into birds instead of carrying out his tasks assigned by hell. It also introduces the idea, at least to Aziraphale, that angels and demons don't have to remain on their respective sides.
So whose side are you on?
My side.
Gosh. Well, that sounds... what? Lonely.
After the fire settles and God starts talking to Job, which honestly sounds a lot more like taunting in this case, the angels come to Earth in order to congratulate Job and Sidis for passing the test. Sidis curses God because she is understandably furious about the fact that she has just lost her children when our favorite midwife / cobbler steps in to help. He helps Sidis and Job perform a good old-fashioned Garden of Eden style fake birth, and then appears their 3 children. Everything goes smoothly until Job and Enon express confusion over the fact that the trio are supposed to be brand new children. This causes Gabriel and Michael to question Aziraphale if they are truly who he says they are. Despite everything he has been taught, he decides to lie to protect the humans, believing himself to be damned in the process. He sits by the sea and waits for what he thinks is the inevitable. Maybe a hole will open up and swallow him, or he'll be brought back to heaven to face his crimes. Or maybe someone will come and try to take him to hell. So when Crowley shows up, Aziraphale willingly gives himself up, ready to face his fate. But Crowley doesn't take him anywhere, he just sits with him.
I'm not taking you to hell, Angel.
Why not?
Well, I don't think you'd like it.
But you have to. I'm like you now. A demon.
Aziraphale believes that by thwarting God in such a serious manner, he has committed an unforgivable sin worthy of falling, and sees himself as no better than a demon, especially because he goes against sentiments and beliefs he has echoed for over 2,000 years at this point. Instead, Crowley assures him he won't tell anyone he lied if Aziraphale won't. Aziraphale then asks what all of this makes him, to which Crowley responds,
You're just an angel who goes along with heaven as far as he can.
Whether he liked it or not, Aziraphale is now on his own side. He goes along as far as he can with heaven until it becomes too much, when they stray too far from his love of humanity. For example, as soon as he realizes heaven has no true intention of stopping the end of the world, going as far as to talk to the Metatron about it because he was desperately clinging to the hope that all of the other angels were simply misguided, he makes the decision to tell Crowley what he knows about the Antichrist in order to team up with him and stop it, despite being told by the Metatron himself that the war was to happen and the world was to end no matter what. After Aziraphale is discorporated and returns to heaven, Aziraphale again defies several orders, this time from a dude apparently called the Quartermaster, who honestly looks like an off-brand Count Olaf. He's ordered to report to his platoon, but he outright says he has no intention in fighting any war. He then directly defies an order to get away from the holographic teleporter globe thingy, and not only does he go through it, but he toys with the idea of possession, something only demons are supposedly able to do. All acts of defiance are done in defense of humanity, regardless if it's to protect a few or the entire planet. This is another big part of why he goes back to heaven. He feels a sort of responsibility to protect Earth and all of its people. Of all the angels, it's Aziraphale who has the most experience on Earth. He's not only lived among humans for 6,000 years, he acts like them as well. Eating, drinking, watching plays and films, reading books, dancing, listening to music, and just enjoying watching the world change around him. He loves humanity, and so does Crowley, the only other celestial being to have as much experience and care for the Earth as he does.
To the world. To the world.
It's why he stops Armageddon in Season 1. He knows that the humans deserve to live for another 6,000 years, if not longer. He sees the beauty the world has to offer, where the others see an obstacle to settling their millenniums-long conflict. Between the sword lying to protect Job's children, thwarting Armageddon, and other examples we see between both seasons, it's clear that Aziraphale is willing to risk falling and severe punishment to protect others. This is also something we see in how he helps Gabriel throughout all of Season 2, despite everything he has done to him.
Jim? Jim? We know Jim?
Hi there.
Gabriel!
This is why, when the Metatron presents Aziraphale with the opportunity to become the Supreme Archangel, Aziraphale sees it as a way to enact the change he has always wanted, to protect everyone and everything, to protect the life he has made with himself on Earth with Crowley.
If I'm in charge, I can make a difference.
The Metatron does use some manipulation to get him there. Assuming what he tells Crowley is true, then the Metatron gives him the praise he has been lacking from everyone except Crowley for a really long time. He tells him that he's just the angel for the job, and when that fails, he resorts to using Crowley as a bargaining chip. Aziraphale doesn't have to leave Crowley. He can take him with him, they can make changes together. Crowley can become an angel again, and Aziraphale, still believing deep down that heaven has the best intentions in the end, thinks this is a good thing. Which leads me to the third and probably biggest issue that contributes to Aziraphale leaving, and that's that he has a massive misunderstanding of how heaven and hell operate. Heaven relies on an instilled sense of duty and moral superiority to control its angels. They also rely on all angels having blind trust in God and the ineffable plan, punishing any critique and question as blatant defiance. Having all the ones who opposed heaven during the Great War fall ensured control over those who remain. In their eyes, the ones in hell were morally inferior and ostracized. To be like them was to be a vile creature who ran around spreading chaos and evil. The other side of the system is hell, which controls through fear. They use torture methods on their demons as a way to keep them in line, as well as discorporation when needed. Though I guess when you're now made to punish and torture the immoral and sinful of the world, you're almost bound to carry that to those among your ranks as well. They even go as far as to make Crowley's attempted execution public as a way to make an example out of him. However, we know that these systems don't always work, especially when the angels and demons start to get to know one another. When Gabriel began to meet with Beelzebub and saw them as someone he could relate to, and eventually as someone he loved, the control the system had over him completely fell apart. He wasn't morally superior to Beelzebub, nor was the idea of falling to be with them this terrifying, lonely concept. Demons aren't the monsters they've been told they are. At the same time, Beelzebub begins to view Gabriel as something that mattered to them more than choosing sides.
You. Thank you.
Silly, silly angel.
So why doesn't this seem to work for Aziraphale and Crowley in the end? It's because Gabriel and Beelzebub only had their own views of each other to contend with, whereas Aziraphale and Crowley have their love of humanity interwoven into the very foundation of their relationship. They have no choice but to confront the system head on in order to maintain the lives they've carved out for themselves. And the unfortunate truth is they aren't on equal playing fields in this task. There's a meme that has circulated on fandom spaces for a while now, and I've seen it used a lot with Aziraphale and Crowley, where one believes the system is broken and in need of repair, and the other knows the system is working exactly as intended and needs to be dismantled. This concept, as many people have noticed, perfectly captures the dynamic between Aziraphale and Crowley. Crowley, who is said to have an active imagination that the other demons lack, as well as his never-ending curiosity, has never really fallen to the control of hell. He goes along with them as far as he can, but still holds on to his morals, his beliefs, and a morsel of hope that God will one day finally listen.
Great plan! God, you listening? Okay, I know. You're testing them. You said you were going to be testing them. You shouldn't test them to destruction.
In Crowley's eyes, the system is working exactly as it's intended to. It maintains control and puts fear into the ones who fall out of line, all while upholding an illusion of moral balance. And while he still holds on to hope, or rather a longing for God's ear, he's long since become disillusioned with her. He knows his only options are to flee, much like Gabriel and Beelzebub, or to completely dismantle the system and rebuild something new in its place. On the other hand, Aziraphale believes the system is not beyond repair. He is well aware of the flaws, and he views the system as broken, and if something's broken, you can fix it. And whether you want to call it optimism or naivety, he believes he himself can fix it. In fact, he thinks he's the one that has to, because as stated before, no one else loves humanity like he and Crowley do. However, Aziraphale still holds on to the notion that heaven is inherently good and hell is inherently bad, viewing Crowley as an exception to this rule as opposed to evidence for greater potential for change.
They asked me back to hell. I said, no, I'm not rejoining their team, neither should you.
But, well, obviously you said no to hell. You're the bad guys. But heaven, well, it's the side of truth, of light, of good.
When heaven ends life here on Earth, it'll be just as dead as if hell ended it.
Unlike Aziraphale, Crowley is well aware that there is bad on both sides, which is why when Aziraphale asks him back to heaven, he says no. He rejects the offer and makes one final attempt to convince the angel not to go through with it, but his mind is made up.
I forgive you.
Don't bother.
While Aziraphale wanted Crowley to kiss him again, as confirmed by producer Bob Wilkins, he knew what he had to do, at least in his mind. And if it meant doing so without Crowley, then he would. He had to. He had given himself no other choice.
We call it the second coming.
Unfortunately, Aziraphale was not there to see what Crowley saw when he went to heaven. The meeting where Gabriel rejected his second attempt at Armageddon, and his subsequent trial. It's likely if Aziraphale tries to push in the same way, heaven will retaliate. And that's assuming they don't have plans to punish him as soon as he gets to the top of that elevator. The true tragedy in Aziraphale is that no matter how much progress he makes, the grip Heaven has on him has never fully gone away. This is a pattern we will likely see into Season 3 that he will have to overcome. He, too, must become aware that Heaven and Hell are not some broken thing he can fix. If he is to ever truly make change and save humanity permanently, the system must be reworked to stop pitting angels and demons against each other and against humanity. He also has to forgive himself and understand that no matter how many times he has defied God by lying and going against orders, everything he did was for the betterment of the world. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm so excited to be starting this new channel and getting to watch it grow. I've always loved to be critical of the media I consume. The way characters act and interact with each other can influence the people who watch TV and movies or read books. This even holds true for video games. I think understanding fiction helps us to understand the world better, how we interact with others and how we interact with ourselves. If you like this video, please consider giving a thumbs up, and if you like this kind of content, then consider subscribing because I will definitely be making more analysis videos, not just for Good Omens, but for different fandoms as well. In fact, if you have any specific things you would like to see in the future, then leave them in the comments below because I would love any ideas you guys have to give. Until next time guys, bye!